Hey everyone, it is Mary Hyatt and welcome to the Mary Hyatt Show. I am excited for today's episode and I just realized my mic isn't where I need it to go. So hang on tight as I move this. Can you tell that I had last week off? I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I've got all my paper set up, but I didn't have my mic, which isn't going to be very helpful. So let me get all that together and then we will officially start the show. Today's episode to me is very time appropriate and needed, I think, for myself and for you guys as well. So we're going to be getting into that here in just a second. So let me just get on and do the technical stuff, as you guys know, and are always so patient with me. This is a one-woman show. So I want to make sure that everything is running smoothly, and then we will officially start. This is the behind the scenes before we actually get going. I think we are good. Okay, cool, yay. And of course, if you are on YouTube live with me today on Wednesday, November 14th, and you want to chime in and comment, you can do so below and just type in, tell me hello, tell me where you are tuning in from. Of course, as we go through today's show, you are welcome to ask me questions or comment. I always love having that interaction. So super happy to engage with you guys in that way. And if you aren't aware of this yet, I also have this content available on a podcast platform, whether it's iTunes or SoundCloud or Google Play. You can just search for The Mary Hyatt Show, and therefore if you are at a place where maybe you can't watch a video or you don't want to have to deal with your phone in that way, maybe you're driving, you can just pop on the audio recording, of course, of the show, which makes it just easy to take with you anywhere you go, and that way you can access these episodes, this episode and all the other episodes that I've done before now in the convenience of your earbuds. But without further ado, let's get started and start the show. It is Mary Hyatt and welcome to the Mary Hyatt Show, episode number, I think we're on 58. Can you believe it? It is so crazy that we are getting closer to 100 than away from it. We have just been talking about so many important things on every single episode, which of course you can access on YouTube Live if you are listening to the recording from your podcast application on your phone, or of course you can go over there, listen to it on your podcast if you are tuning in with me live here on YouTube. But today's episode is all about befriending your emotions. I don't know about you guys, and I said this in the email that I sent out yesterday, that there has been an intensity of emotion that seems like it is going viral in my own mind with my girlfriends, which means this is something that is happening universally everywhere, that people are just feeling a lot of heightened emotions. It just feels like there's this heaviness right now in the energy of our daily lives, whether it's sort of dealing with stuff that's coming up from our past. Winter is kind of setting in, it's getting colder, it's getting darker. We had daylight savings time. We had the approach of the holidays coming up. And so we've got a lot of things that are sort of asking for our emotional attention. And we're sort of in this sort of opportunity to dive deeper into those emotions, or to completely repel them and to try to stuff them and ignore them and avoid them. And so on today's show, I want to give you some really helpful ways to process your emotions, to befriend them, and kind of address them in a healthy way that allows you to move into more of a space of peace and kind of getting on with the good stuff of your life. But Before I hop into all of that, I have to tell you, I had the most amazing weekend. For those of you that were with me live, we had my very first Make Peace with Your Body workshop. That was so amazing. We had 20 women there. They were so precious. People that traveled in, people who were local to Nashville, and we spent the whole day together talking about this mind-body connection, talking about how our bodies are communicating to us all the time, talking about how we have a physical body, how we have a mental and emotional body, and how we have a spiritual, energetic body, and what you can do to be able to support each one of those bodies and understand your body's unique language. And I just had to share some of those photos for those of you who are watching the YouTube live video, because it was such a sweet day. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who attended. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for the ways that you guys showed up to do powerful work and get into your bodies in a way that allowed you more peace, allowed you more freedom, allowed you the ability to anchor in to something and come home and befriend that body that maybe you've been at war with, maybe that you thought was against you, and start to understand how your body is really on your team in a powerful, powerful way. And I can't wait to be doing more of these workshops. I think what I walked away with after the weekend was just realizing how needed these workshops are, how often as women we don't process our emotions, how often we sort of store our emotions in our body, how disconnected and disassociated we are from our bodies, and how that causes us a lot of suffering, a lot of physical and emotional pain. And that's kind of why I decided to do today's episode sort of as a follow-up to that workshop of, okay, we understand this mind-body connection, but how do we actually process the emotions that we're able to read through our body sensations? So for those of you who were at the workshop, this is going to be some great follow-up material for you to kind of dive a little bit deeper into this emotional processing work. And for those of you who weren't able to be there, I have another amazing retreat coming up. So this was kind of a one-day workshop, but I have sort of the mother lode workshop retreat, the creme de la creme, the absolute best thing that I will offer, I would say, all of next year. I've already decided on what it is, and it is my 10-day self-discovery retreat in Peru. This trip, oh my gosh, this is going to be the most transformational, powerful trip you could ever imagine. This is going to be my 5th trip to Peru, and you can go to maryhyatt.com/Peru to check out all the details, to check out the itinerary, to see what it is that we're going to be working on, what we're doing, where we're going. And basically we spend 10 days together. It's going to be a max of 10 people, including myself, and we work with healers and shamans. We go to all these different sacred sites. We do meditation, we do yoga, we dive deep into what it is that makes us come alive and how to access our own voice and to begin to live more authentically into who we truly are. And so it's kind of like a 10-day intensive in one of the most amazing countries you could ever experience. I fell in love with Peru the first time that I went, and it changed me from head to toe, from inside and out. It radically shifted every single cell of my body to the point where I can't help but continue to go back again and again and again. And I actually started a nonprofit there. So we even spend one day there with my nonprofit as a service day. We get to see Machu Picchu, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. And the landscape of Peru is absolutely stunning. So along with all the beautiful emotional, spiritual work that we're doing, you're also getting to explore and travel across one of the most just beautiful landscapes, just stunning views. It's just, there's no trip like it. So I want to invite you to that. So maryhyatt.com/Peru in April. I would absolutely love to have you for those 10 days and to experience some life-changing, transformational experiences. So there's that. We're doing a little housekeeping today. And before we hop into the episode, for my essential oil lovers, I want to make sure that we talk about an oil that I am using. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago that I am going to be starting off our episodes with talking about an essential oil, because it's such a huge part of my self-care routine. It's such a huge part of the way that I support my body and I support my emotions. And obviously I am a presidential doTERRA wellness advocate. And so I teach women and families how to take care of their bodies naturally. And so I want to always make sure that I am sort of bringing it back to the basics and talking about what I'm doing in my day-to-day routine to help me function and be my healthiest self. And so today I want to cover the oil of ylang ylang. If you're looking at this online, you can see the crazy way this is spelled, but it's ylang, ylang ylang. I just kind of love saying that word. But I started using this a couple days ago to really support me in some work that I'm doing emotionally. And as we're talking about processing our emotions, essential oils are a really beautiful way to support your body as you're processing through what's coming up. And physically, ylang ylang is really lovely for women. It's really great to help with your menstrual cycle, with cramping, with PMS, with flow. And then it's also really great for the heart physically, whether that's rapid heartbeat, whether that is blood pressure management, whether that is palpitations, anything where you might need some support for your actual cardiovascular system. Ylang ylang is a beautiful support for that, just rubbing it on the heart every single day. And I also like this. Interestingly enough, maybe you wouldn't think of it for this, really wonderful for any kind of backaches, any kind of like jaw discomfort, jaw pain that you might be experiencing. Really great for the nervous system, really great for muscle spasms, really great to help ease muscle tension. So I love to add this to a bath with some Epsom salts, one of my favorite oils to use in my bath. It's just so calming, so relaxing. But for my ladies, this is also really lovely for your libido. So this is really, really fantastic for any kind of difficulty connecting intimately. It's really great for any kind of difficulty sleeping. It is great for kind of frigidity, and I love it for that. But emotionally, and this is what really hit home with me and why I decided to use this every single day, is it's known as the oil of the inner child. And ylang ylang is not only powerful for the heart physically, it's also powerful for the heart emotionally. And in this book, Emotions and Essential Oils, which I typically refer to when I'm talking to you guys on the show, just hold this up to the camera so if you guys can see that, Emotions and Essential Oils. And it says here that ylang ylang reconnects an individual with the inner child in the pure, simple ways of the heart. It encourages play and restores a childlike nature and innocence. It assists in accessing intuition or heart knowing. Ylang ylang is also a powerful remedy for releasing emotional trauma from the past. It is a fantastic support in age regression work and other methods of emotional healing. Ylang ylang also assists individuals in releasing bottled up emotions such as anger and sadness, feelings that have been buried and brought to light through ylang ylangs assistance. This oil allows the emotional healing to flow naturally, nurturing the heart through this process. It reminds the individual that joy can be felt and experienced more fully by allowing the heart its full range of emotions. So I think this is really perfect for our episode today, where we're talking about befriending emotions. It can really assist in that. So that was ylang ylang. And of course, if you want more information about essential oils, you can go to my website, maryhyatt.com. You can contact me through there. I have a tab at the top that talks about essential oils. So I would absolutely love to assist you in that journey. And I just want to give a little shout out to Joanne, to Elizabeth, to Kim, who are watching us live on YouTube. So like I mentioned, a lot's been going on emotionally, just universally in our country right now. And I think women in particular, as we are a little bit sometimes more sensitive to the energy that's circulating and to the vibe of what's happening, we're feeling it. We're feeling the heaviness of the current emotional stream, I guess, that's happening. And as I was in this workshop this past weekend, I was really aware that kind of everybody was feeling this and processing some really heavy, like back regressed trauma or emotions or old pain or old wounds or old hurts. And so I thought, okay, I think it would be really helpful, since we're not taught this as kids. How do you process emotions? How can you sit in the discomfort of pain, of grief, of anger, of resentment, of unforgiveness? How can you sit in that and feel it and then process it and sort of release it? How do we do that? And I know that for me, and I would love to hear from you guys if this is something that you also resonate with, but when I was little, I wasn't taught what emotions were. I wasn't given the vocabulary for emotions. I didn't know how to properly express emotions. I mean, I started going to therapy in high school, which I'm such a fan of. So grateful that I was able to do that. And I started sort of learning, okay, here's how we talk about emotions. Here's the language of emotions. Here's how you categorize them. Here's how you give voice to them. But before that, as a kid, sort of the messaging that I received, and I'm sure that you guys received this, whether it was from your family of origin, whether it was from friends, church, school, some kind of other organization, sort of the messaging, I think especially here in the lovely South, it was like, pull it together, get over it, suck it up. Tears are for wimps. Nobody wants to be around a basket case. And it was all sort of like, lock it up and toss it aside. There was no coddling. There was no, I hear you. I want to validate your emotions and validate your feelings. It was sort of this concept as sort of get over it. Go to the corner, have your moment, come back. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with it. And that was really challenging as a kid, because as an adult, it's not like we go to school for psychology unless you happen to be therapists. You don't learn this. And so we bring this sort of like, not inept way of being, but sort of, I'm blanking on the word, but basically we don't have the skill set to be able to talk about emotions. And then we get in these relationships, we get into romantic relationships with our friends. And as we become adults and we become parents, and it's like, all of a sudden we're supposed to become experts at this and know how to navigate and communicate and process and get through our emotions. But nobody actually ever taught us what that looks like. So I want to teach you today. And kind of as an inquiry, sort of pausing to ask yourself for a moment, what were the messages that you received as a little girl about your feelings, about having emotions? Were they positive messages? Were they negative messages? What did you receive as a child about emotions? Was it like me, where a little bit it was like, turn it off, get rid of it, quiet, hush, be quiet, settle down, simmer down, suck it up? And you might be still receiving those messages from somebody in your life now, but as a kid, let's sort of just take a moment to ask ourselves, what did we learn? If we didn't learn how to process emotions, we learned how to not process emotions. Kim, you said, I cried easily as a child, but have turned off emotions because it seemed the messages when you're an adult, you have it all together. Totally. So even if you maybe had somebody who was positive in your childhood in processing emotions and you were allowed to experience them as an adult, it's sort of like, okay, now you have to have your stuff together. Now you have to be able to keep it together, stay in control, not have your emotions take over and function in society. So there's not a lot of space to hold emotions or to process them. And thank you, Kim, for commenting on the YouTube live. That's so helpful to hear. And it's really interesting. Think about this, anytime that we resist an emotion or avoid it, or we stop feeling it, what is coming up for us? Or if you think about any way of saying, I'm going to kind of have this habitual rejection of what is going on, this is going to create a lot of suffering for us. It drives shame down really deep into our psyche, and it's not a very productive way of moving through our life that gives us an invitation or an opportunity to process and release what's coming up in our lives. And instead, it's making it almost stay longer and create more discomfort in the long run, because we're holding on to it. We're sort of not processing it, we're avoiding it, and then we stuff it, which causes it to stick around for much longer. And so as these emotions come up and we say something like, this is not okay to feel this, whether that be our intuition that's coming up and trying to speak to us, and we say, nope, I can't listen to you right now, I can't hear you right now, or maybe it's pain in your body, or you're having some kind of body sensation, like a gut feeling that's trying, your body's trying to communicate to you, and you sort of stick your fingers in your ears and it's like, la, 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 I can't hear you, we're not dealing with this, I don't have time, this isn't an appropriate space to have an emotional meltdown, I can't do this, it's not safe. Anytime that we're sort of in that place where we say, this is not okay, or if we start feeling intense loneliness or shame or anger or fear, and we pull away from it or we stuff it down, that creates delayed suffering. And I know that y'all have experienced this. I think every human being has. The delayed suffering, it kind of looks like it either is going to come out sideways. So think about a beach ball for a second. So think about what happens with a beach ball, and you're in a body of water and you press this beach ball down into the water, and you're like, struggling with it, and you're resisting it, and you're pushing it down, and you're pushing it down, and it's causing all this tension, all this resistance. And then what happens? It eventually pops up in your face, right? It explodes. And so it's like when you are stuffing, when you are pressing down, and Dawn, you said, yeah, can relate to stuffing feelings. Anxiety has reared as a result. Totally. Elizabeth, you said, yes, I received the same message as you, Mary. Yeah, right? It's like, it comes out sideways, it comes out backwards, it comes out from a negative place when we're not processing it. It's that energy of resistance, it causes it to be bigger than it ever was in the first place when we try to press it down, try to avoid it. Or the other thing that happens when we do this is it gets to the point where we have to numb out so deeply that we completely check out and disassociate from our bodies. We can't even experience the world anymore in 3D. And I explored this in my workshop this weekend. I had a lot of people come up and talk to me about this sort of disassociation from their body. Like they couldn't feel their body. They were just like checked out, clued out. Like they weren't even resonating with the pain. They weren't even able to process any like chronic pain that they were having, because they were totally disconnected from their body. And that's because when we stuff our emotions, and we talked about this at the workshop, that then it gets transferred to the muscles. Then it gets housed in our muscles. And so it comes up in symptoms of pain and discomfort or dis-ease, and it's really uncomfortable. And we do this kind of stuffing, avoiding, resisting, because it's kind of all we know to do, like as a means of control, as a means of survival. Like I said, we don't really know how to do it. We don't know how to process. Maybe it feels too scary. Maybe the emotions feel too overwhelming. Maybe they feel too vulnerable. Maybe they feel too threatening, like they might disrupt areas of our life if we admit to them or if we feel them. And it's what we've been taught. And so when that feeling comes on and it feels really intense and it's really strong, we don't want to integrate, because the pain feels so threatening that we either shut down, we avoid, we numb, or we disassociate. So that's kind of the dilemma that we're in. That's our current dilemma. But I want to pose to you a third option, and this is what we're going to dive into today. I really do believe, and I have experienced, and I teach, and I practice this third option, which I think is a really loving approach to this emotional intensity that is arising, whether it's now, whether it's in the future, for the rest of your life as emotions pop up. And that is to open up to your emotions with radical loving and radical acceptance. Now we're going to get into the practicality of actually how to do that, how to meet and befriend your emotions with loving and acceptance. But we have to train ourselves in this. We have to come back to the present invite ourselves into this experience over and over again. This is an experience for me that happens daily. And start realizing the way that we've been doing it isn't necessarily working. The numbing, the stuffing, the avoiding, the disassociating, it's just causing us more pain, delayed suffering. And there is a different way to pay attention to what's happening and to meet it with loving and acceptance. So for just a moment, before I get into our 7 ways to befriend your emotions, I want to talk about what emotions are so that we can sort of take away the charge of the emotions. And I'm going to cover this briefly because I actually go into this in more depth in a previous episode, so I won't spend the time here. But feelings are just sensations within the body. They aren't actually a part of you. So an emotion is just a vibration. It's just a sensation. So if you have the emotion or the vibration or the sensation of anger, for example, it's just a sensation in your body. It's a vibration. It's an energy. It can't own you. It can't take you over unless you agree to it or give it permission. It's generated by what you're thinking. What you're thinking creates your emotions. So we can get into anger really easily by thinking of things that make us angry or fixating or focusing on the things about a person or about a situation that we don't like, which causes more anger. It can be a defense mechanism from hurt and pain. But it doesn't actually have any control over you. So they feel real, but they aren't true. It's all a matter of perspective. And the good news about that is that we get to choose how we feel. We have creative agency over how we feel. We can shift at any moment and change the state of our emotions. So if we are in a situation where we are feeling discomfort, anger, frustration, annoyance, whatever that might be, we can shift that in an instance by changing what our focus is, by changing how we think about the situation, by changing our perspective so that we feel more of what we want to feel and less of what we don't. Not that either of these are bad or good. Emotions are neutral. But I, in my life, want to feel more of the pleasurable emotions, the ones that make me feel good, the ones that light me up, the ones that motivate me and inspire me and call me into a place of deeper peace. I want to feel more of that. And as those emotions of grief come up, as those emotions of anger come up, as those emotions of loneliness come up, shame, fear, doubt, we'll talk a little bit about how to befriend those and give them a space. But ultimately, I get to choose how long I hang out in that vibration, how long I sit with it, how long I dissect it, how long I ruminate over it, how long I biggie size it, make it bigger, make it more intense. It's like all of that is me. I'm responsible for the emotion, not anybody else. Nobody can make me feel any way. I'm a creative agent in my emotional state. And so what's cool about that is we can shift it, we can change it, but that to remember as you're experiencing and starting a journey of feeling what you're feeling, welcoming these feelings in, to remember that they're just vibrations. We can change them. If they get too intense, we can reduce the intensity. They're just vibrations. They don't have control over you. Feeling something is not going to send you into a loony bin without your permission. You can have control over them. You can seek to understand them, understand their voice. Why are they here? What are they teaching you? They're messengers. I think about our feelings and emotions as messengers. They are a wonderful barometer for how you are reacting to life, where you need to be, where you need to move towards or away from. Wonderful way to measure like how you're experiencing life and what you want more of, what you want less of. Like emotions are such a powerful tool as a messenger. I love them. I love all of my emotions because they're communicating to me, oh, I don't like that, or oh, I love that, or oh, this is really hard. What needs some tender loving? What needs more healing? What needs more forgiveness? What needs more release? What needs more transmuting? What needs more letting go of? They're just messaging to us all the time. I love it. And so it's like if we can look at our emotions as something that isn't so scary, I can feel depressed without being a depressed person. I can feel anxious without going into massive anxiety and being an anxious person. I can experience anger without being an angry person. I can experience all these emotions, but they don't have an attachment to me unless I agree to it. So it's sort of like coming in to, if we're going to feel our feelings, we sort of have to come in from a neutral place. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. And so that's really powerful. They're just sensations. They aren't actually your identity. So let's clear that up really quickly. Okay. So I want to talk though about the 7 ways to befriend your emotions. How do you actually sit with emotions? How do you process? I love this. It's a really gentle way to do this. It does require that you take a little bit of time to actually feel. Part of the process of befriending your emotions is presence, is slowing down to be present with yourself and what is coming up. But before we get into that, I want to make sure to encourage you to sign up for my newsletter. If you haven't done that already, you can just go to maryhyatt.com and you can sign up for my newsletter. And why I think this is so beneficial to you is you will get reminders about our show. You will get reminders of any events, workshops, or retreats that I have coming up. Any special offerings that I'm giving, like I'll oftentimes send a guided meditation or an audio recording of something else that I've been, processing that can be really of value to you. So I want to make sure that you know about that. And if you do sign up to my newsletter, you are going to get my free ebook, 5 Mistakes You're Making with Your Affirmations, to help you create and formulate affirmations that give you sort of the secret formula to manifest what it is that you want every single time, so that you know what not to do and you know what to do when it comes to creating powerful affirmations and incantations. So I want to encourage you to sign up at maryhyatt.com, or you can find the link in the video description below if you're watching the YouTube live version of this show. And of course, like I mentioned before, you can also go to the Mary Hyatt podcast. I encourage you to subscribe there to my podcasts, subscribe to the YouTube live show, to my YouTube channel. And if you're feeling extra loving and extra just excited to give me some little kickback, I would love for you to not only subscribe, but to rate the podcast as well. So if you're on your phone, all you have to do is scroll down under the Mary Hyatt Show, click those 5 stars, rate me a 5-star, and write me a little review right there. You just click on that, and all you have to do is say why you love the podcast, what you get out of it. If you happen to have a comment about me as the host, that would just help other people find this show and see the value in what we are cultivating here together. So thank you so much in advance for subscribing and doing that. So let's dive into the 7 ways to befriend your emotions. How do we sit with what's going on, what's coming up, especially in this intensity right now, so that we can process and get to a space of more peace and more pleasure. So the 7 ways to befriend your emotions. The first way is to recognize and admit that I'm feeling something, that you're feeling something. It's sort of like the first step in any process is awareness. Hey, I'm having an emotional response to something. I am an emotional being. Because if we're disconnected, if we're so used to numbing out, has to be the first step. Admitting, and this feels a little bit vulnerable sometimes, admitting that we are having an emotional response and asking ourselves very deeply, what is asking for my highest attention right now? Every single person who is either listening to this audio recording or watching the YouTube live show is experiencing emotion right now. So just take a minute and admit to yourself, I'm having an emotional reaction right now. Like for me, I'm sitting here and I have a little bit of nervousness. I'm feeling nervous. Okay, so that is, I'm acknowledging I'm sitting here doing this show, and obviously I'm distracted from my emotions because I'm tuning in with you guys. I'm present. I'm looking at the camera. I'm switching slides. I'm checking out my notes. So sometimes I walk throughout my day, and if we're busy people, which everybody is, we're not acknowledging that we are at any given moment having an emotional response. So the first way to befriend is just to create this awareness and to recognize, hey, I'm feeling something. What is asking for my highest attention right now? What is the invitation? What needs to be experienced right now? So that's kind of the first way. Let's recognize that we're feeling it. The second way, this is probably my favorite, is to feel it in your body, to recognize that all of our thoughts, feelings, and actions are a reaction to the sensations that we're having within our bodies. So every time we feel anger, every time we feel joy, every time we feel grief, we actually have a physical sensation inside of our bodies that are mirroring the cognitive awareness that we might have that we're feeling something. It's getting translated into our bodies through our central nervous system. And so this is really powerful because the more we can get into our body, we can release those emotions and we can go, ooh, yes, this is a sensation in my body. It's connecting us deeper to our emotional experience. So it's sort of like, okay, I'm having an emotional experience right now. Where do I feel it in my body? Before we even get to the place of calling it a name, which is one of our steps later on, we need to recognize the first thing before we even, our brains catch up to the verbiage, to the vocabulary for the description of what we're feeling it in our bodies first. Body first, mind second. So this is where we have to ask ourselves, where do I feel it in the body? And oftentimes I'll go through an entire sort of body scan. If it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm punched in the stomach, or my chest feels really tight, or oh my gosh, my palms are sweating, or I'm feeling a fluttering in my heart, or man, my shoulders feel really tight, or I have this throbbing pain in my left side, or God, it feels like there's a knife going through my right shoulder blade. If we can't kind of clue in initially to something that maybe feels like a strong body sensation, I do a body scan. So I just start at the top of my head and I just sort of close my eyes here for a second and I just walk through. Do I feel anything through my face, through my forehead, through my cheeks, through my jaw? Am I clenching my jaw? Does my jaw feel tight? How does my throat feel? Does my throat feel tight? Does it feel open? Does it feel blocked? What about my heart? Does my heart feel tight? Does it feel closed off? Does it feel restricted, or does it feel expansive? Does it feel open? What about my back? What about my lower back? What about my stomach? Do I feel sick to my stomach? Do I feel nauseated? Do I feel like there's having that pit in the stomach? Do I feel a heaviness? Am I feeling it anywhere in my legs, in my knees, in my lower part of my legs, in my feet? And you can just sort of scan through the body and just sort of pick up, is there any body sensation? And this takes practice because we are numb. We've learned how to numb those body sensations. And so this is something that I practice every day within my meditation in the morning. And I'm just going through, what am I feeling in my body? Feeling in the body first, body sensations. So that's the second way to befriend your emotions. Let's pause. Where do I feel it in my body? What's the body sensation? Where does that emotion right now that's asking for my highest awareness, my highest attention, where does it live in my body? And seeing if we can really clue into feeling that. Now, the third way to befriend our emotions, this is probably the most important when we're talking about befriending, is to detach any judgments to the emotions that might be arising. This is really, really important to create sort of what I like to call a safe space for our emotions, creating a non-judgmental space. Now, everybody has judgments on emotions coming into this process. They think that they shouldn't feel something, they shouldn't be responding in a certain way, they're judging it, they're judging emotions as bad and some emotions as good. I shouldn't be feeling this bad emotion, I want to be feeling this good emotion. And so in order to befriend, before we even can process and transmute out of our emotions, we have to be able to say, you're welcome here. There's no judgment. There's no right way to be. There's no wrong way to be. There's no emotion that is better or worse. We're just hanging out in a state of full acceptance without commentary, where we're not attaching meaning, we are not attaching judgment, we are not attaching shame, we are not attaching interpretation. We're creating the space for our emotions to just be. So we really want to detach that judgment. It is what it is, and this gives us the free ability to kind of see what's coming up and what's triggering us. Because if we start going, nope, I can't feel this, nope, I can't feel this, we've just entered resistance into the process. And now all of a sudden we're in this tug of war of, is this okay to feel? Is this safe to feel? I don't know. Somebody says this is not. What would this person think about me if they knew I was thinking this or feeling this? Right? It's like it makes the whole process cloudy. It makes it tricky. We start attaching morality and judgment and ethics, and that's not helpful to the process. We want it neutral. So you can decide how you want to feel, how you want to move forward, how you want to release, what you need to process, what you need to deal with. So the third way to befriend your emotions is to detach the judgment and create a space of neutrality for your emotions to exist. So as they come up, okay, thank you, I feel this. Yes, I appreciate that. To me, one of the most powerful sort of ways of addressing and meeting my emotions is that radical acceptance, which is the word yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes to my anger. Yes to my fear. Yes to my doubts. Yes to my criticism. Yes to my self-judgment. Yes to the shame I'm feeling. Yes to the grief that I'm feeling. Yes to the hurt that I'm feeling. Yes to the anger that I'm feeling. Yes to the joy that I'm feeling. Yes, 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 yes. When I say yes, it gives it that neutrality. When I start entering into the word no, I can't feel this. No, I don't want to feel this. No, creates resistance. And we want to remove that resistance, detach the judgment, get into a space of yes, so we can actually really hear what's behind this emotion, what needs to be processed and dealt with. So is this helpful? Is this resonating? Are you guys having any moments of sort of like, oh wow, that's really helpful. That's an aha moment. If you are, comment below. I want to know what's hitting home for you. And the fourth way to befriend your emotions is to name the feeling. And I'm going to have some audience participation in this one from you guys. To name the emotion, to name the feeling. This helps with accepting the emotion because it gives it permission to be there. It's sort of like a diagnosis, of something, and you just kind of call it what it is, which sort of just says like, hey, I see you. And you know what? Because there's no judgment, you're safe to be here. We can call it what it is. I am angry. If I gave myself permission to feel, I feel blank. So I want to hear in the comments from you guys, what are you feeling? And if you're listening to the audio podcast recording, just taking a self-inquiry for a moment, ask yourself, what is coming up for me? What am I feeling? Can I name the primary emotion that I'm feeling right now? So we've recognized that you're feeling something, you're feeling it in your body, you're finding out where that emotion lives, you're creating and detaching judgment, creating a non-judgmental space for that emotion, and now we're going to name it. Anger, fear, distrust, anxiety, depression, loneliness. What are you feeling? So comment below. Think about this if you're listening to the recording. What are you feeling? Some examples, and this is kind of like extending and broadening our vocabulary. This is something I had to look up online, like emotional vocabulary, because I really, like, you guys have heard my extent of my emotional vocabulary today, which is like loneliness and fear and anger and joy and grief. But there are so many more emotions. So emotions like refreshed, enlivened, rejuvenated, renewed, rested, restored, revived, or maybe you're feeling disconnected, alienated, aloof, apathetic, bored, cold, detached, distant, distracted, indifferent, numb, removed, withdrawn. Shelly, you said feeling grief. Yeah. Annoyed, aggravated, dismayed, disgruntled, displeased, exasperated, frustrated, impatient, irritated, irked. Or maybe you're feeling excited, amazed, animated, ardent, aroused, dazzled, eager, energetic, enthusiastic, giddy, invigorated, lively, passionate, surprised, vibrant. There's a whole range of emotions that you can be feeling. So see if you can name it. Naming also removes the power. It's taking it out of the place of just sensation that can oftentimes be overwhelming. And if we just name it, I am feeling XYZ, it takes the power away from it and puts you back into the driver's seat and in control of how to process it next. Callie, you said, emotions come from thoughts, but we feel it in the body first, then the mind. Please expound on this. Okay, I'm like, this is a whole thing that I would love to teach you. So I'm wondering if maybe I need to like pause this and say this for a later episode, but thank you for your question. But basically, it kind of works as a circle. So it's like anything that we're thinking, feeling, reacting is from a physical sensation in the body. And then based on our thoughts, we can biggie size it. We can make it more intense. So it's like, ooh, I'm feeling this twinge of anger in my body. And then I start thinking about anger. Then I start thinking about anger, thinking what makes me angry, who makes me angry, what makes me angry, why it makes me angry, how angry I am. And that intensifies it more and more and more. And so it's sort of like a circle. It's like, it's a continuum. It's feeding back and forth. And the more angry you feel, the more it's going to translate into your body and translate into your body. And of course, as you offer resistance into that and stuff it, that can get into your meridian energy channels and get stored and stuck there, into your muscle tissue, stored and stuck there. This is a lot about what the workshop was that we did this past weekend. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But I'm really glad that you asked that question, and I think I'm going to address that on a future podcast. So keep coming back and stay tuned. So thank you for that. You said you're also feeling grief and nervousness, and thank you for sharing that too. So feeling it. Okay. So we're recognizing that you're feeling something, feeling it in your body, creating a non-judgmental space, detaching judgment, naming the feeling, and then the fifth way in this process to befriend your emotions is to feel it some more. How can I accept this and not resist it? How can I sit in the discomfort of the feeling until it passes? Now, this is probably the hardest part of the journey, is sitting with the emotion until it doesn't need to be talking to you anymore. Like we said, an emotion is just a messenger. It's just communicating something to you. And so this was probably the most difficult part of the workshop. After lunch, I had everybody lay down and we did about 20, 30 minutes of breath work where they just sat in their emotion. Whatever was coming up for them at the time, they just sat in it and let it rise without resistance. How can I meet this without resistance? Because the moment that we feel discomfort, we want to shut it down. The moment that it feels icky or intense, we want to press it down, numb it out, disconnect from it. When in reality, if we can sit with it and feel it, it can dissipate. It takes away the power. The resistance is what gives it the power. When we can remove the resistance and sit in the discomfort, that is what becomes super powerful and healing. Then you can allow the tears to flow if they need to flow. You can allow sort of the rise and the fall of the emotion, sort of the waves that come along with the emotion. It's really beautiful. And the more that you can sit in it without resistance, it's like what happens is it's not so scary anymore, because you do realize it is like a wave. It might get intense for a minute and then it drops down. I had a therapist tell me once that you can't experience a panic attack longer than 20 minutes at a time. And for somebody like me who's dealt with a lot of anxiety and panic attacks, that has been so helpful to know, like, there's an endpoint here. My body can't sustain that level of heightened emotion. So if you're experiencing grief, and you guys know this, eventually the grief dissipates. But the resistance, I'm unwilling to feel, it's not okay to feel, that's what creates the suffering. If we can sit in it, if we can be in it, if we can feel it some more, that's when it can move through us and you can truly let it go. Feel it. The way through emotion is to feel it, to invite it to tea, to sit down with it, to hear it. What do you need to say to me? Anger. What are you feeling? Grief. Let it talk. Let it have a tantrum. Let it go all over the freaking place. Let it do what it needs to do so that it's like it gets it out. It gets that charge. It gets that intensity out when you can sit with it and you can feel it. And Kim, you said, yeah, that's why yoga is so important. I have a hard time sitting in poses and being so quiet and still. Nervous energy, go, go, go. Yeah, to actually slow down and be with ourselves. To ask ourselves, what is asking for my highest attention right now, and just sitting with it. It's like yoga is a perfect example. It's doing like a stretch that hurts. And the more you fight it, the more you resist it, the more it hurts. The more you can release, relax, melt, surrender. It's like, it has room to breathe. It doesn't feel so frantic. It doesn't feel so intense. And that is our work, is coming back to giving ourselves permission to feel and to sit with and to be still with what is arising inside of ourselves. That is the radical acceptance. That is the loving presence. That's that third way that I'm talking about. Being with it, befriending it, sitting with it, feeling it, giving ourselves full permission to just feel what we're feeling, to feel the grief, to feel the nervousness. Again, when you come at it with no judgment, it's like, it's okay that I'm feeling this. I hear you. I see you. This feels really heavy. Okay. I see you. I hear you. It's okay. I see you. I feel you. I hear you. It's okay. That's the work. I think that's such a beautiful analogy, Kim. Thank you for bringing up the parallels to yoga and then the benefits of yoga. All right, closing in, sixth way. This is something that I think is really beautiful, and this is to express it. This is after we feel it, then we can give language to it. So the sixth way to befriend is to express it in a healthy way, from a neutral place. You know, are there any conversations that you need to have? Do you want to sit and journal about it? Do you need to have a conversation with somebody? But doing that from a neutral place, it's like you've already felt it. The intensity has sort of waned. That's sort of now, you know, you're off of the rise and the intensity, and we're coming off of the fall. And so now it's like, okay, now we can add a little cognitive processing to this. We can express it, whether it's verbally expressing it, whether it is having a conversation of something that you might need with somebody, journaling it out, like, okay, let's process what just happened. You can express it. That's the way to befriend it. Like, it's okay to give voice to that. Oftentimes I'll have a piece of paper and I'll just write it all out, like blech, emotional vomit, and then I'll burn that piece of paper. I'm expressing it. I'm out of it. But it's coming from a place of neutrality, like, thank you. We're on the other end of it. And then the final and last way to befriend your emotions is to ask yourself what you need. To ask yourself what you need. This is where the release happens. You've felt it, you've befriended it, you've sat with it, you've named it, you felt it in your body. Now, what do you need to clear it, to transmute it, to release it, to let go of it, to process it? And for me, what that looks like is shifting how I want to feel. And I do this is all kind of in a meditative state. So I'm typically like sitting down, I'm sort of going through this process of these 7 ways. And then I bring in so much light into my being. So I imagine as if, this is what I get from my beautiful yoga teacher, Bethany, imagine this beautiful sun above you. And you're just pouring in, breathing in, sucking in, sipping in liquid light, liquid love. And we're just like, it's like taking a water can of that liquid sunlight, of that liquid love, and we're just pouring it over the tender places of our hearts. We're just dripping that onto the areas that are needing a little loving, a little attention, a little tenderness, a little compassion, a little empathy, a little understanding, a little bit of I see you and I hear you and I love you and we're going to be okay. We're taking that never-ending stream of love and light, and we're just putting it on to our emotions. What do I need? What do I need? And usually for me, the answer is more love and more light, more tenderness, more sweetness, more gentleness, more kindness. And as we sort of transmute codependency, maybe we need to shift and we need to journal. Maybe we need to take a bath. Maybe we need to call a friend. Maybe we need to schedule a yoga session, or maybe we need to schedule a therapy session. Maybe we need to forgive somebody. Maybe we need to let go. Like, what do we need to fully release and let go and transmute all of this energy? And then go, okay, now what is it that I want to feel? Shifting my focus on what I do want to feel more of. I want to call in and bring in more peace, bring in more calm, bring in more safety, bring in more love, bring in more harmony, bring in more connection, bring in more intimacy, bring in more healing. And taking that moment as you've processed and you've felt and you've identified and you've named, and then like, okay, now what are we calling in? It's sort of like we've emptied out and now we want to fill ourselves back up. We've created space. We've moved that emotion out from the intensity. We've processed it. We've moved it out. Now, what do we want to fill ourselves back up with? What do we want to receive? What do we want to invite into our experience, our emotional state? What is it that we want to feel? And being very intentional about bringing that to mind, seeing it, creating it, focusing on the good stuff, the good feelings that are more pleasurable. And I say good, not good and bad, but just like what we want more of in our lives that feel good for us. And that could be anything. And so as you start doing this work, as you meet resistance, as this is coming up, you can always ask yourself, this is kind of like a backwards way of getting into it. You can say, what am I unwilling to feel right now? Because like I said, we're all having an emotional experience every moment of every day. So you might just say, okay, what am I unwilling to feel? I'm unwilling to feel the grief, the sadness, the loneliness, the detachment, the hurt. What am I unwilling to feel? And then we can really get into the place of going, okay, thank you. I am feeling that grief. Let's recognize it. Okay, I am feeling that. I'm feeling it in my chest. I'm feeling it in my heart. It's really, really heavy. I'm feeling it. I'm almost wanting to cry. We create that detached judgment. Okay, there's no judgment. It's okay to feel grief. It's safe to feel grief. I welcome this grief. We call it grief. We name it. We feel it. We set time aside to feel it, to let it come up and feel it. And then we can express that in any way that we need to. We can journal it out. We can write a letter to somebody that we love. We maybe never even mail it to them. You know, we can maybe share some memories and some photos of a person that we've lost and like process that grief a little bit more. And then we can ask ourselves what we need. Okay, that part of my heart that's hurting, that's feeling all that grief, needs a lot of love and tenderness. Let's call in that light. Let's call in that love. Let's bring in spirit to assist in this journey. Let's really give ourselves that gift. What do I need? I need to take a bath right now and just soothe this. I need to put some essential oils on my body. Yes, yes, yes. More love, more love, more love, more love. So I hope that as all of these emotions are coming up for you through this season, as you're triggered by stuff that's happening with family, that you sort of like give yourself a few minutes to put yourself in a bathroom if you need to, take a moment in your room, take a quick little drive, just giving yourself the gift of befriending these emotions rather than avoiding or numbing or stuffing, and giving yourself the gift of your own presence, of your own willingness to go there so that you can process and show up in a completely new way, being fully present without the distraction of things yelling at you and needing to resist and push down, but that you are coming at life from a place of more neutrality, more peace, because you've befriended these emotions. You've welcomed them and you've released them. So guys, thank you so much for being on today's episode. I so appreciated all of the comments, all of your interaction. That was so fun to have that today. And for those of you who are listening to the replay or listening to the recording, thank you for tuning in as well. I hope to see you in Peru. I hope to get to spend some awesome time with you there. And obviously next week is Thanksgiving. So we will not be having a show, as I will be celebrating Thanksgiving with my sweet family on the Wednesday before the actual Thanksgiving, but I will be back the following week. So until then, remember that the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. Happy Thanksgiving, you guys, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.